Hey everyone, Daniel and Chris here with another episode of the Superhero Show. Feels like every week we're talking about Captain America: Civil War, and
every week,
because it's just this week we know that Renner's going to be in it, Hawkeye's going to be in it, Black Widow's going to be in it. It feels like a lot of excitement's building, and Avengers isn't even out yet, and we're getting loads of feedback about the Civil War, and now Spider-Man's back, how they're going to adapt it. It's the best-selling Marvel comic series of the last 20 years, I believe.
I think 18 years we were told.
18 years
by the writer himself.
Actually, should we hear more from the writer himself?
Yeah, because we thought we'd do a Civil War show because a couple of weeks ago we met with Mark Millar in Glasgow and did a live podcast with him, and we got talking to him about Civil War because he's not really gone on the record much about the fact that they're adapting his comic and trying to figure out how loosely they're adapting it and getting his thoughts on Spider-Man rejoining the MCU. So yeah, this is what Mark had to say.
So a big change happening in the Marvel universe soon is the storyline Civil War.
Yeah.
You wrote Civil War, Mark.
It's very exciting.
That's pretty awesome.
It's exciting for me, actually. Like I love the idea of seeing like Downey Jr. facing off against Chris Evans and all that. You know, I think that'll be really exciting to see on screen. Like, because I mean, I didn't even think about a movie when I was doing the comic. I wrote it back in 2006 or something. You know, so it's a while back. And the last thing you imagine when you're sitting doing your book generally is Downey Jr. or whatever is going to be in this. And
even now when you're writing comics, do you even?
I never think of the movie. Never think of the movie. I think it'd be too distracting. It'd be like writing something and thinking this would be an amazing beach towel, or something. You know, like you can't think of it anything other than what you're doing. Even when I was writing Kick-Ass 3, and Aaron and Chloe had played those parts in the film, I never saw it as Aaron and Chloe. I just saw it as the cartoon characters, you know, the drawing.
With Civil War, though, what do you think could you speculate as to what they might change or have to change, or you think they'll change to turn it into the next Captain America movie, which is what it's going to be?
I don't think they'll have to change much, especially now they've got Spider-Man. You know, now Spider-Man.
Yeah, because that's what I was going to ask you. What are your feelings about Spider-Man rejoining the MCU?
Character in that story.
Well, it's funny because you think people kept saying to me they can't do Civil War without Spider-Man, but in the actual book, Spider-Man only appears in about 6 pages.
Because the rumour was for a long time that Black Panther was going to kind of fill in for that kind of role. That was the rumour going around anyway.
Well, in the end, probably what they've got is they've got Spider-Man back, which is actually great. As somebody who's kind of been a bit baffled with the last 2 Spider-Man films, you know, like the idea of Marvel getting it back does feel like coming home a little bit for the character, doesn't it? I mean, Marvel, it's not that they can do no wrong. I mean, Thor 2 wasn't very good and Iron Man 2 wasn't very good, you know, so they have their misfires as well. But I think Spider-Man's like the holy grail for them. They're not going to mess this up. They're going to make it great. And all eyes are on them, so they have to bring their A game to it.
So that was Mark saying that he doesn't think they'll have to change that much if they're adapting it directly, but we kind of disagree, don't we?
Yeah, I feel like we get a lot of feedback and people kind of assuming, and of course you would assume they've called it Civil War, and they're obviously not done that by accident. They're obviously channeling and acknowledging that series, but I think it's going to be a heavy adaptation, just like what they're doing with Ultron is an adaptation. Like everything they're doing is kind of a free adaptation. Same with Winter Soldier, kind of mixing elements, borrowing stuff, reimagining it, because it's not just a simple retelling. And just where the MCU is, it's a total different place to where the Marvel continuity found itself when that comic was written.
Yep.
The fact that people have had secret identities for decades, that there are loads and loads of heroes, the kind of the social politics are different in that world. So I think it's going to be a much freer adaptation than people are expecting.
Yeah, and the talk was all about the fact that the focal point, the big moment, is Spider-Man being revealed to be Peter Parker in the comic. And when Spider-Man wasn't part of the MCU, we kind of thought it might be Black Panther. And now,
I don't know if anyone ever said that, but that seems like the general consensus.
Yeah,
was
that would be a direction to go, of unmasking that character who's potentially introduced in a film this summer, maybe. We just don't know at the moment. But just because Spider-Man is going to be in the movie, do you think it necessarily means they're going to use that moment, or is it too soon to like introduce him and then unmask him?
I feel if you do that, I think that moment has all the gravity it has in the comics, because he takes the mask off and he goes, I've been Peter Parker since I was 16 years old. That he's been Peter Parker, I've been Spider-Man for that amount of time, and it carries weight because he's so fiercely maintained his secret identity. If you introduce him and he's been Spider-Man for 6 months and then he does it, it has no weight. It doesn't mean anything as an act, as a moment.
So it would work if it was Andrew Garfield, for example.
Yeah.
But for the new actor, it's a tougher sell to make that a really big emotional beat in the film.
Yeah, and because in the film, in the comic, Spider-Man's kind of pulled back and forth between the two sides, and I wonder if it's going to be less complex than that. You feel like obviously Iron Man and Captain America come to blows because they pose for those pictures when they're fighting each other, but there's other ways to take Civil War, for instance. Because of the fall of S.H.I.E.L.D. through Hydra, is the entire American political system infested by the enemy? Therefore, is it the heroes against the country?
Yeah, well, I like all the groundwork they've laid there, so that Captain America's journey in this film will make a lot of sense based on what happened in that movie. Iron Man, it's going to have to all happen in Age of Ultron, because at the moment, Tony Stark is he's pretty anti-government, isn't he? He doesn't want them having anything to do with his suit, so it'll be quite a big turnaround for him to become kind of pro-government.
Yeah, so I think the groundwork and the political background that will kind of feed in and fuel the Civil War would be very different for the comics. I think they just have to reconfigure it all, because I think without all those characters and without the stakes of interring making superheroes into prisoners and creating new superhero squads and all that sort of stuff, those are big elements and parts of that kind of storyline. And there's no way you can set up all that stuff.
No, now we know Black Widow's going to be part of it. Which side will she take?
Yeah.
She's a confusing one.
Yeah.
And so now we know Hawkeye isn't going to die in Age of Ultron. I don't know what it is, but we all think they're going to kill him sooner or later. That kind of seems to be the general consensus.
Why does everyone want Hawkeye to die? He's not had anything to do yet.
But with the Civil War, the big the stuff that's going to need to happen in that, someone's going to have to die, I think.
Yeah. In
this war. So maybe they're just shifting him on one.
Yeah, Captain America. It's going to happen. You heard it here first.
Should we get some feedback?
Yeah, definitely.
I'll do the first piece. It's from Jared Smith, who says, I picked up Civil War a couple of days ago at my local comic store in early preparation for the movie. One thought popped into my head as I read. How will the movie match the scope of the graphic novel? In the Civil War comic, there is a massive war of heroes and villains alike. But how can Marvel match that scale with just Iron Man, Captain America, Spider-Man, and possibly Black Panther? With S.H.I.E.L.D. demolished and the Avengers parting ways after Age of Ultron, Marvel will have a tough time bringing the same intensity to the silver screen. So yeah, that will be interesting, because it's the scale, and as Mark said it when we spoke to him, he was 40, 50 different superheroes he had to write lines for and moments for.
Yeah, and I also know where they were going off in their individual books, tie-in books, which is actually a nightmare.
Yeah, but I can't imagine, so that scale they won't be able to achieve with the superheroes themselves.
I think Civil War is also really interesting from the perspective that everyone's super enthused for Avengers because the first one was great, but also because it's that team-up movie. It's seeing them all on screen together. That's what Civil War is now. It's loads of characters. It's almost like another kind of Avengers-like movie.
Yeah.
Especially following on Winter Soldier is so successful, so entertaining. That's got so many of the same characters in.
Yeah.
I think it does have a sense of scale compared to other blockbusters. But obviously, it's never going to do what the graphic novel is, because you can literally just draw anyone you want.
Yeah.
One of the best scenes in the graphic novel is the death of Goliath when they bury him, and he dies while he's in super giant form, and they have to dig this huge grave for him. That's spectacular.
Yeah.
But I'm sure they'll manage it. But there's also some people saying bring in Netflix characters. It'd be interesting to see whether they do anything like that.
We might have emails on that front.
So the next one, this is the best name ever.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, I'm Lance Murdoch.
Hi, Lance Murdoch.
That's a brilliant superhero name. With regards to Captain America Civil War, I think it's kind of ridiculous that people think Spider-Man will have the same role in the film as in the comics, given that he does not hold the same place in the MCU as in the comics. In the original source material, he's an experienced, well-respected, well-liked hero, the perfect person to convince all the young superheroes to demask. Whereas in the MCU, he is a newly powered superhero who no one has heard of, I assume. I think Spider-Man will be the person Stark is trying to arrest and Cap is trying to protect him.
It's interesting. Kind of agreeing with us a little bit, but yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what role the character plays.
Yeah, and I think we touched on this the other week, so it may be really fascinating 10 years from now to know how much of the film... Well, we'll be able to tell a little bit when we see it, but how much of the film changed to accommodate the introduction of Spider-Man.
Yeah, gets rewritten. Because it's the same...
Because you can make it into a...
There is consistency with the Captain America movies. It's the same two writers, Marcus and McNiven, is it?
Yeah, they're really good.
So, yeah, I guess they're frantically scribbling away right now, but hopefully they'll maintain some consistency. But one question I've actually got is, this is the third Captain America movie. We're going to have to see the continuation of the Winter Soldier story.
Yeah, that's got to be in there somewhere.
It ended up a cliffhanger, so I wonder how he's going to figure into things, and maybe because he's obviously someone who's already swapped sides from good to evil, not through any fault of his own, but that's going to have to play a big part of this film, because he's going to be that will have been forgotten for Age of Ultron. So
Yeah. 5-hour running time. That's how you deal with it.
I have an email from Aaron Potter who says, "Just wanted your opinion on whether or not you think we'll get to see Daredevil appear in Captain America: Civil War. The show is obviously set to start on Netflix next month, but if the show's marketing is anything to go by, he shows no signs of acquiring his iconic red suit just yet. Well, we'll have to wait and see. There's 10 episodes. Marvel will need to throw nearly all of the masked heroes they have translated to screen already at Civil War if the film is to have the full impact, in my opinion. And Daredevil plays an essential role, effectively acting as Cap's second-in-command throughout the storyline. Do you think the Daredevil Netflix show has enough time to link viewers with the character of Daredevil effectively enough so that if he happens in Civil War, we will be fully engaged and understanding of him?" Good question.
Yeah. Well, the new trailer went live this week, which is really good. I really enjoyed it. Be interesting. I think they might use it more as like a cameo thing down the line rather than... Don't know. I think a series like... What is it? 13 hours they're doing. That is more. That's more than Daredevil will already have more than any other single character in terms of screen time.
Yeah.
So it's definitely enough time to establish him as a character, his world.
Yeah.
If they want to weave him in, he'll be really established. It's just whether that film needs another character. I don't think it probably does.
It will be interesting though. We haven't got a handle on their plans of how or if they'll cross over the TV with the film characters.
Yeah. Because we know it is the same universe. That is a thing. And obviously at the end of the Daredevil trailer, the guy goes, well, if you had a suit of armour or if you had a magical hammer, I could understand why you keep getting your asses handed to you.
Yeah. So
they exist in the same world, same as S.H.I.E.L.D. But that's going down one kind of tone. Do you know what I mean? Like, he looks cool in, like, that lighting, that cinematography with that outfit. If he's in, like, bright sunshine in the Avengers scene, it might just look a little bit different. And if he's not bleeding and stuff, it's kind of a slightly different grammar to that part of the universe.
You feel like we'll understand a lot more after April 10th how the potential crossovers could happen.
Loads of good Easter eggs in that.
Yeah. Who knows if one of the big ones cameos in that?
That's feature idea. Next one is from Lee. Hey Lee, me and my friend have been discussing the thought of one of the Avengers being killed off in this film and the Civil War as a high possibility. We started to look at the obvious choices, for example Hawkeye or even Black Widow. However, Reno and Scarlet are both signed up for Civil War. Sorry, he's on about the Avengers. What I'd be interested in hearing from both of you is the possibility of Thor being killed off. After all, his next film is Thor Ragnarok. And of course, Ragnarok, being a cyborg clone of Thor made by Tony Stark, leads me to think that Stark could build Ragnarok as a way to make up for being responsible for the events of Age of Ultron and ultimately the death of Thor. This has also made me think about a possible emphasis on the scene from the new trailer where the team are all trying to lift Mjolnir, possibly leading to Stark researching the enchantment for later use when he creates Ragnarok. So
it's a good, interesting theory.
So Thor dies, and obviously in the trailers that scene where he's kind of in a pool somewhere else from all the other characters, like screaming, and then he goes away, create the clone. Obviously that's also in Civil War.
I don't know, I'm liking it. It's interesting.
Do you think that's a bit far out?
Well, all I will say is that all these characters aren't going to keep appearing in all these films. So sooner or later, they're going to have to replace Thor, or Thor, it won't be Chris Hemsworth, and that will change. So maybe, I don't know.
It's like football, isn't it? Or soccer.
Yeah.
These are the established pros. You're going to bring in the new generation. You know what the next, the Black Panther, Doctor Strange, getting them into a position where you can bring them into the first team.
Yeah.
And then sell them to Stoke or Grimsby.
Because by that time, he would have played Thor six times, 7 times.
Something like that.
I don't know. I like it. I mean, yeah, it's way out there. But
I think people thought after that Avengers trailer, we've seen too much. I think there's going to be a lot more in that film that we have no idea. There's going to be a lot of more interesting Thanos stuff, cosmic stuff that they're not showing in the trailer.
We got a lot of emails on this subject. We could only read out, I don't know, about a third of them. But there have been some far out theories that people have sent in, which are really cool. Keep them coming.
I think there's loads of stuff going to happen in that movie.
Hi guys, I'm Steve from Boston. So we have a Boston viewer, so thank you for that. Assuming Batman v Superman was still scheduled to come out on the same day as Captain America Civil War, who do you think would have won at the box office now that we know Spider-Man is likely to appear in Civil War? I believe Civil War might have won because Spider-Man is the most popular mainstream superhero, and having him in the MCU is like a dream come true. Is he the most popular mainstream one? Maybe.
I think Once Upon a Time.
I feel like Batman is now. I don't know. I just like to put this in because it's fun to speculate, isn't it?
Yeah.
I'm inclined to agree with you, Steve from Boston. I think it's unstoppable now. These Marvel movies, especially the ones where everyone's involved.
I think they've attained critical mass, or like this can't be stopped.
Yeah.
Like everyone is great. I think every Marvel movie. I think Ant-Man's the only one that I feel slightly apart from this. Everyone is like a great trailer for the next movie because they've all got different names like Thor 3 and Winter Soldier. It's got to the point where they all impinge on the next one.
Yep.
They're all kind of like cliffhangers for that character, or like when they're going to come back. And I can only see them becoming more and more like that in the coming years.
Although, are we being down on DC? Am I being down on DC by saying this? And is everyone going to get annoyed
not
with
at
me?
all. Just because you're excited for one doesn't mean you're not excited for the other.
No, exactly. And I guess, you know, we could see a trailer in the next couple of months for Batman v Superman. It'll change everything.
I think that's also the thing. We've not seen anything for that. I know we're not seeing anything for Civil War, but we know like they've made some really cool announcements. I suppose Aquaman, but I think we need to see a little bit.
Yeah.
We need to see a little bit more from them. Last one from me is from Joshua. Hey Josh, have you guys thought about a deal being broken between Marvel and Sony with regards to Spider-Man? Why can't Sony have Peter and Marvel have Miles?
I quite like
Marvel
that email.
have Miles.
That was
Just
simple. A very simple, succinct email. I don't think it's going to happen, is it?
I just don't think that's what Sony want ultimately. Like they want to like tap into the Marvel magic, and the only way they're going to do that is if they can give Marvel a version of Spider-Man, which they can then take back for their movie. I think that's the whole play for them.
But at this time, I would like to see it be Miles Morales rather than Peter Parker.
Yeah.
Just something different, you know?
Yeah, or a good Spider-Man.
Good Spider-Man.
I'm joking.
My last email comes from John Rowe, who says, with Hugh Jackman bringing up the possibility of Wolverine in the MCU, how great would it be if he suddenly showed up on Captain America's side in the Civil War movie? In my mind, it would all be kept a secret until Cap introduced his team to the Canadian friend he fought with in World War II. That would be cool, wouldn't it?
That would be really cool to have a flashback scene. That's a really good way to bring him in. Hugh Jackman's up for it.
Yeah. Let's hope.
That's
Kevin
a really good
Feige's
idea.
listening to this.
Yeah. But I don't think we're going to have two teams of superheroes battling it out.
No.
I just can't see that actually happening. I feel like it will be a civil war, and part of it will be ideological differences between Cap and Iron Man, and they might come to blows in one scene, but by the end of it, they'll be fighting a bigger threat.
Yeah.
I think it'll be something like that, where they take on the Nation, which is Hydra, or something like that.
Yeah. It's making me really excited for the ending of Age of Ultron, because obviously whatever will happen with Ultron, they'll defeat him or whatever, but then it will be setting up this.
There's got to be something.
This standoff between Tony and Steve.
They'll walk. There'll be loads of rubble, and they'll just walk in separate directions, and certain people will pair off with them. So like the opposite of the shot from Civil War where they're fighting.
Yeah.
It's basically a division.
You nailed it.
The cold Civil War.
So there you go. That's the ending of Age of Ultron.
Spoilers. I'm
Spoilers
sorry.
here on
Should
the
have said
Superhero
spoiler
Show.
alert.
Yeah.
So that's what you thought of the Civil War adaptation that's coming. You can email us at any time. What's the address, Chris?
Superheroshow@ign.com.
Yeah. Until next week, for everything on Marvel, DC, and all the rest, stay right here on IGN.